This podcast was recorded on June 18th, 2020. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and people outside the binary. This is Less Stupid with Thomas Hiura, a show that's completely uncut, uncensored, and unfazed by people who are going to be a little bit skeptical of me bringing somebody on the show who hosts a podcast called Conservatish with Peter Feliciano. How dare you step outside of the acceptable parameters of political opinion, especially as a musician and someone from the Bay Area.
I know, right? You horrible man. Mm-hmm. And one who's
How you doing?
One who's half Puerto Rican as well.
Exactly.
I was thinking. I've got another guy, Poe. Have you heard of Poe, the rapper?
No.
All right. Well, he's formerly known as Poe, but anyway, I'm not sure if he's rapping very much these days, but he's also half. I think he's half Latin, just like I am. And I was thinking of having debates like this. We could call them Battle of the Halvesies.
Well, there you go.
Well, I enjoyed myself. Yeah. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on the show. You've been on my show twice.
I have.
I have had a couple of dare I say, bleeding heart liberals from Oregon. Our friend Benjo.
Benjo, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when Benjo was on your show, he basically said that, you play up this racial identity of like, ooh, yeah, I'm half Puerto Rican, so I can say anything, and you can't call me a racist or whatever. But he said something I disagree with, which he was like, motherfucker, you're white. Look at you. And that's just, it's an interesting, matter of perception. I think you and we both are kind of racially ambiguous, you know? I mean, I've had people who have genuinely looked at me and felt like that's definitely an Asian that I'm looking at. And then I've had people who look at me and say that is definitely a white person, and I can't see any. How dare they even say, they're in this person of color world.
Right.
So
in New York, I have had finally, because I moved to New York 8 months ago. In New York, I finally had people go, "Oh, you're Puerto Rican." Because in the Bay, there are no Puerto Ricans. I think me and my family were the only fucking people who were Puerto Ricans. So they were just like confused. Like if I had this stash, they'd be like, "Oh, he's Mexican Holmes," or something like that, right? But finally in New York, I've run across people who are like almond eyes. Okay, yeah, he's Puerto Rican. So
there you go.
So that's good.
Right on.
But yeah,
right on.
as far as I will say to that thing, unless there's more plugs you have to do before we get into it.
No.
Okay. I was thinking as far as that thing, because I don't, Benjo specifically has a problem wrapping his head around this idea. And because he's not here to defend himself or explain himself further, I'll go ahead and expound. Start your own fucking show. Anyway, I love the guy. He's a nice boy. Anyway.
Makes good beats, too.
Makes
good beats, too.
Great beats. Yeah, really talented dude. And one of the things he's pressed me on is like, well, you're using identity politics just like the other side is. No, I'm not. I'm using identity politics to show how fucking stupid identity politics is. I'm using identity politics to poke a hole in the idea. As an example, a few days or maybe a week ago now, I posted a quote from Trayvon Martin's mom, how she does not agree with defunding the police. And before I posted it, I had this big, long, big, long, sarcastic, "You're all cunts." I was going to just, push it down people's throat. "You're hypocrites. You're bad." But I breathed, I meditated, tried some self-care, ate something, smoked a cigarette, chilled out. And then I deleted all that stuff I wrote for my Facebook audience and just posted it by itself. And, someone else brought that up to me. Someone was like, "Well, aren't you co-opting a black person's voice by saying this?" I'm like, no. Over and over, especially it really ramped up after George Floyd died. There was a lot of people saying white people don't get to have an opinion about XYZ, or these people, here comes the white opinion. There was a lot of especially white people saying that type of stuff. And so, being as someone who's a Habsy, I was like, well, again, I think we should first do our best, because all of us are guilty of that. But like, we should do our best to take the idea as itself, outside of the opinion or the identity of the person expressing the idea. The reason why it bothered me is because there were a lot of valid people or valid opinions coming forth, a lot of valid definitions of the problems we're facing, the solutions we're facing, the options that we have, the diagnosis, and yet people were completely throwing all of those opinions and ideas out, especially mostly because of the race of the person expressing the idea. And so I'm holding up a mirror by saying, hey, look, here's a bunch of black people who super disagree with you. Now that that's aside, well, they're just internalized hatred of themselves. Shut up. Now that that's aside, can we just look at the idea? Can we take the idea for its merit itself? Can we be adults? And that's why I use identity politics to show like, hey, this should not be binary, like you were saying. This should not be 100%. There's 41 million black people in this country, okay? That's 41 million different life experiences, 41 million different perceptions brought about by those life experiences, 41 million different emotions elicited by those perceptions, and 41 million different reactions. You're going to say there's one black experience? Shut the hell up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's saying that there's one black experience. And you asked me if there were any plugs I wanted to do. I forgot to mention to people who are only listening on the audio, this is over a Zoom call. And one of the things that can make that extra challenging is because you and I are going to disagree vehemently on a lot of things. And it's hard to step in and cut a person off, especially when it's a Zoom call.
I'm listening.
Deal with that as much as possible. Yeah, true. But then sometimes I start talking and then I don't miss what you're saying in a way that would be even more pronounced or less pronounced in person. But it is nice that we don't have to wear masks because those muffle audio as well.
Right.
And so I've
you
been
have
doing
been recording
some shows,
in person though.
Yeah, distanced and super sanitized, etc. But okay, so I hear what you're saying, but I think that, gosh, we're moving forward as a society. I would love to get to a place where we can acknowledge all of those different experiences and realities within any racial group or any identity group. But it feels to me like we haven't significantly altered the issues that are affecting, let's say, most black people or African Americans who tend to believe a certain thing. And one of the things, I guess, if I can try to agree with you, even though I hate a lot of what you said, is that
I love you.
So absolutely. So identity politics and the way that I was gonna say people like you, like will weaponize that phrase. Will weaponize that phrase is it's just like people speaking from the perspective of groups that haven't had any kind of power to speak from their perspective before. But what I will agree with is that sometimes, and you talk about this a lot on your show, is fucking Don Lemons of the world and the media who are. There's too much of an incentive for people to say, that this is like the Asian opinion, this is the black opinion, this is the white opinion, and to inflame those kinds of tensions because of this is kind of happening simultaneously at the time that these news organizations are profiting a lot off of just making you mad enough to click a link. And so that is something and that's probably a little bit the kind of identity politics that lost Hillary Clinton the election, of basically putting centering so much of her campaign being around those kinds of things that you're talking about, and honestly not having a very strong policy message. She kind of relied on the fact that people have known what her policy positions have been, but they've also morphed so much where the average layperson who pays attention less than me and less than you would probably be able to say, yeah, I can name 2 or 3 things that Trump definitely wants to do as president. I can name 2 or 3 things that Bernie Sanders definitely wants to do as president. Hillary Clinton just wants to be the president. So.
Right. Yeah. I agree. And I can understand that motive to the first thing you were saying. The idea that we're finally giving a voice to people who haven't had a voice. Yes, in some circumstances, but our last president was a halvesy, like you and I. Okay.
Oh, you're really gonna go there?
Yeah, our last president was a black guy. So I'm just saying there's nuance, there's complication to that, right? So as an example, another complication to that idea is the fact that black people have had the ear for what's cool and what's musically like important for probably 30 years, especially the last 20. Okay, even if they did, I'm not saying that they didn't. I'm saying I'm saying these issues are complicated. Like, as an example, one of the issues that gets bandied around, or one of those phrases, is privilege, right? Women have privilege too. Ask any woman. I'll explain what I'm saying. What I'm saying. Because we all have privilege, and we all have problems, and we all have wins and losses. This is what I'm saying. Humans are complicated. Here's an example of female privilege. They can have sex absolutely anytime they'd like. I saw a meme the other day. A woman, I'm not putting that privilege in one hand and getting raped in the other and saying one is worse or better. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in reality, in everyday life. I saw a meme the other day that said a woman could walk into a bar with $4 and be sober, and then walk out drunk, with $20 extra in her pocket. Like this is what I'm saying. We all have a lived experience with the idea that there are wins and losses, right? That's my view of things. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm saying. That's an example of why I say, okay, maybe in some certain lights, like you're saying, that certain marginalized groups have been marginalized. Yeah, but not all of them. You know what I mean? I mean, Thomas Sowell is a great example.
Yeah, but I would flip that
Larry
back on
Elder.
you and say that the kind of privilege you're talking about is kind of specific to young women. Women between age of like 20 and 35 in urban areas. I would say that we talk in the social justice world about like white feminism, and what I would agree with you is that like there are like the Amy Coopers of the world who called the cops on that black gentleman who was birding in the Central Park, and she was trying to use a form of privilege that comes from her identity as an upper class white woman, that she believed the cops would just come and fucking take this guy, right? But
I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't want to get lost too much in the weeds of that tangent. I was more, because I'm happy to discuss it with you. I just was only bringing up that idea to show that there are, from my view, maybe I shouldn't have brought it up that way, but I was just trying to say that the idea of what is marginalized, right, and what's our definition of certain things, of that our definitions are complicated. It's not one way or another. It's not. Do you understand what I mean by that? That's the only reason I brought up that privilege example as an example to support my idea that I agree with you in some ways that these groups have been marginalized or whatever, but that also those groups have had other benefits. We all have wins and losses. Do you understand what I'm saying? As an example, to say that Dave Chappelle has more power than some white guy walking down the street, or less power, that's not a thing, right? It's impossible. Like,
sure.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but when you individually point out Barack Obama and Dave Chappelle, these are some of the singular most exceptional people in that entire group of people. So it becomes a little bit tricky for me to be like, okay, I'll accept that as an argument and now not stand for the entire rest of the people. Where I would say
right,
is
but
that
I'm not saying that to say that doesn't stand for the entire people. I'm saying it's good for us to be careful about but for us to be aware of the words we use, right?
Right. Here's a word
to take an of courseness idea, or to add a large slab of courseness to the idea that black people have all been marginalized or all not had a voice or all have whatever, is not a true thing. That's what I'm saying. Because there are levels. There's levels to this shit. There's complicated. You know what I'm saying?
I bet there's places in this country Dave Chappelle could not go and be looked at in a friendly way by the police, even though he's Dave Chappelle. But okay, let me ask you about a word. How often have you heard the word intersectionality?
A bunch.
Okay.
Go on to OkCupid more than 5 seconds.
Right. Okay. I bet they're probably there on the dating profiles. So I get what you're saying, and actually, where I would come at this is that, I saw this tweet I really liked, and it was like, Ivy League activists be like, I grew up homeless. My parents owned the house, you know? And there are
Right.
people who are like, they try really hard in some cases. And I'm talking, last time I was on your show, we had a difficult, emotional conversation about my experience at Carleton College. And
Right.
I explained a little more about just the culture there that I experienced, and that a lot of people who came from a low income background experienced. There really is like people who want to be able to say, hey, look at me, I'm going to hold up this one identity and say that I am oppressed because of it. But where the dialogue is then important, I think, is to look at the intersections of, let's say, like having no class privilege, having no privilege based on your gender. Let's say like you are a trans person, a trans man, and being a black person, or having all of these things. And I know it's kind of sounding like I'm checking off all these boxes, but at the end of the day, a person with those identities, and let's say they have a disability, and I know this is like it sounds like I'm making a totally hypothetical person, but there's millions of people who have all these things that I just said, right? That person has no chance of becoming president of the U.S., has basically no chance of being a governor of their state. We've never even had a black woman governor, for example, in this country. So, I mean, there really are ways in which, like, a person who is, let's say, an upper class, white, straight, cisgendered male is probably should have some fucking humility and be like, some of the things in my life, people have listened to me, or people have taken me seriously, or not arrested me because of those things.
Okay. So, yes, I agree in certain ways. So here's where I think the disconnect is, the main one, and then we can talk more about the idea. But I think the main disconnect is the check that is trying to be cashed on the basis of that idea, right? The solutions that are trying to be applied on the basis of that diagnosis, if that diagnosis were true, right? Because even though, see, you would be termed,
the policy
as an example,
solutions are often controversial.
not just controversial. The more it's the culture. The culture solutions are pretty terrifying, depending on people using that flag. Do you understand what I'm saying? On people using that diagnosis of these people don't get to talk. Their solution is to that diagnosis. Their medicine is shut white people up.
Yeah, kind of. But I mean, the reality is that so much of the time it's literally just someone tweeted at you and said, shut up. And it doesn't actually mean that you don't get to talk. A private company like Twitter or Facebook is allowed to say that you've delved into hate speech if you've delved into hate speech. We have a very robust First Amendment, and one of the things you used the word cunt earlier on the show. I didn't really like that. It's the first time anyone's used that on the show, on my show.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
No, you're not happy, and I'm not happy.
Yay!
You goofball. But my point is that, yeah, you're allowed to say that, and there's no,
Absolutely.
Gestapo that's going to come in.
Absolutely. Not from the government. You're absolutely right. There was a comedian who posted a fake video of her. Oh, what was it? God damn it, I'm going to mess up. It was a white lady comedian making a joke, making some sort of Asian joke, okay? And then she was bombarded on Instagram by these little raids of people, these networks of people who are like, get her. And they just are bombarding all of her comments with you're a C word, you're a horrible person, you should kill yourself, you're goodbye to your career, all kinds of DMs, blah, blah, blah. Let's be real, at least as far as this. Let's not get off into the weeds because it's easy for us because you and I are both passionate and both smart. Let's not get off into the weeds about all that. Let's talk about this specifically as far as the diagnosis versus the solution. That's not okay.
It's probably not okay in that some of those like kill yourself comments are not okay. But I mean, if you got 200 people to all say you should have reconsidered that racist thought and now we don't want you to have a career, I don't see a problem with that. I mean, that person could that's the problem with people in large groups though, right? Like we've talked a bit about cancel culture, and I don't like it on some level, and people have tried to cancel you, and people have tried to cancel me at various points in our lives. But the reality is that if you did something that's really bad, well, then there's going to be some accountability to face. If you didn't do anything bad, stand in your truth, and you'll be okay. So that person could make new social media accounts and just be connected with their close homies.
Yeah, but I don't. Right, but this person is not. See, the thing is that everyone has a different definition of what offends them and what they're okay with.
True.
Right? So, and Instagram, as an example, or let's just say she was in a job. Let's just say SNL. Let's take that thing we were talking about, with what's his face getting a job at SNL, and then
I don't remember, but he made the Asian joke, right?
Yeah, he made Asian jokes. I mean, he said all kinds of. I mean, that's the thing about funny people is that if you're going for the joke, you're going for the joke, right? That's just my personal opinion. I'm going for the joke. It doesn't. I'll make fun of white people, make fun of Puerto Ricans. I don't give a shit. Right? I don't know why I canceled out my word shit there. I said shit instead, like as if I didn't say the C word 5 minutes ago. Anyway, but everyone has a different definition. So if you're saying that it was just one lady. And the consequences that she faced was a bunch of people who, let's just say in a magical world, they only were respectful, right? And they only went and said, I disagree with your decision to do this. Please rethink your decision. Even though they're being condescending, okay, and they're being childish. Sure, let's just say that. But SNL didn't let a guy get a job because of the pressure from that, okay? Because of the pressure from that. Even though outside of Twitter, outside of a couple of loud, childish people on social media, no one has been mad about this guy. And this guy has been able to keep, quote unquote, keep his career, right? Even though a great job that would propel him in incredible ways was taken away from him. Not because Lorne Michaels actually disagrees with that type of humor. And I can back that up. He's still friends with Tina Fey, even though she's done blackface on 30 Rock twice. He's still doing another project with her, another episode of 30 Rock.
Fallon did the blackface Chris Rock. Did you see that?
Ta-da! So let's be real. Lorne Michaels, the company SNL, okay, Broadway Video, does not actually care. They are caving because they are afraid, okay? So even though, yes, they do have a choice, they're a private company, right? But this throng of, honestly, Asians who can't take a joke are going online trying to get somebody fired. And let's be real. Did Pete Feliciano just say that Asians can't take a joke? No. I said this throng of people. Just like all the Karens who are like, don't say the word Karen. No. Those are white ladies who can't take a joke. Everybody is capable of not taking a joke and being childish, right?
A few responses.
Please.
One, you kind of said, this job was taken away from him, and sure, that's somewhat true, but I think that the reality is also that he made jokes that were so a joke that landed so poorly and had so little humorous value in it. I heard the joke that it was his fault, man. I mean, he should have been somewhat aware to be able to know that that was something like that was going to happen if you've got a job at SNL in one of the most liberal cities in the world. My second response is that, you know what? We're going to have to work around these rough edges a bit, but for Asian Americans to have a say in who has a role within a mainstream, like a really popular primetime TV show, that's a fucking win for us, baby. We haven't had that in ever. Asians one of the last burdens that the hills we need to climb. It's certainly not getting chemistry PhDs, but it is getting some serious representation.
That's an Asian joke, by the way.
In the media. Yes, it is. But positionality, my friend. Where I am is, fuck yeah, I'll joke about Asians. Okay, yeah. Yeah, and so, I get what you're saying a little bit, especially with the different standards applied to someone like Faye or Fallon. But that person has got to know that, if they're trying to cut their teeth in the game and they're not a household name yet, that's
right. But household
at.
Nameness doesn't. The first thing I would say is I don't think household nameness saves you from that. right?
But Dave Chappelle
So, like,
makes trans jokes and is still celebrated.
Right. The reason why he gets that is not necessarily, and that, I mean, I guess that kind of might go to my point earlier that I was saying that Dave Chappelle can get away with a lot and has more privilege.
But mine was that he's kind of an exception because he's so famous.
Right.
Anyway.
But I think also part of it is because he's black. Lorne
Probably
Michaels,
a little bit.
who would probably get a lot of pressure if Dave Chappelle was white, would probably get a lot of pressure and would have to cave. The reason why Lorne Michaels, or let's just say the showrunners of Netflix, the reason why they're not caving is because, well, I mean, he's not a white guy really, or a white lady, you know what I mean? So he can get away with more.
This
right?
is an interesting point to go at because it's not like what you're saying has no truth to it.
Right.
But I wouldn't say it's specifically because when Dave Chappelle has dark skin, or when he signs an employment application, he checks black. I would say it's because Dave Chappelle has done so much work speaking to an experience that resonates with black people in the country. And so that to me, when you watch those jokes that he's making about the trans community and about the L's and the G's and the B's and the T's, and, you know, people who don't know, I speak from the perspective of a non-binary person and a longtime bisexual person, for whatever that's worth, for their analysis of what I'm saying. You know, it is what you talk about on your show a lot was white guilt. So people don't
I hate it.
like to. I know that you do. I really know that you do. And I think that if we're talking about it in certain contexts, I get frustrated by it too, by that concept. But man, it is going to be really interesting to see because especially in the college campus spaces, there are a lot of people who want to make it seem as though and promote the idea that like all marginalized people all have each other's backs and we're all fighting against oppression together. And, you know, you're totally shaking your head because, you know, much of the time, like, you know, for the example I always point out is Asian people. My mom is super racist against black people, and she totally thinks it's okay to have those racist views because she thinks of herself as having experienced race. Well, of course she's experienced racism. I've seen it firsthand. Yeah, dude, the reality of the world is much more strange than that. I don't know where I can really say why Dave Chappelle gets to make those jokes, but I don't know, man.
So let's, because I took a couple of notes because I love conversations like this because I know whatever. See, again, I'm already ready to get off on a tangent. As far as the thing you were saying to the idea that, so if we can agree that Lorne Michaels doesn't actually really care. And not that he doesn't care or have his own political views or have his own agenda or whatever, but that once the gears of a company start grinding, okay, and maybe grinding has a pejorative, but once the gears are in motion, the company is now bigger than the idealism. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying Broadway video necessarily is bigger than Lorne Michaels, because Lorne Michaels could, once he's done, Broadway video is not going to, I mean, Lorne Michaels has the clout, more importantly than the money, to call up Netflix or whoever and say, hey, this guy's going to do a show now. And everyone will just, okay, Lorne, right? So, so if we can get behind the idea that the gears are grinding and that Lorne didn't make that decision there we go, Shane Gillis, to let go Shane Gillis.
That's
right?
what it was.
Is that the power that Asians want? I mean, most of the Asians that I know don't like, is that the power let me rephrase that. Is that the way you want it?
So,
because there's a lot of powerful Asians. I mean, the head of Google right now is an Indian motherfucker. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of powerful Asians who did it the way that fucking dum-dums like Enron have done it. Okay.
So the nature of the joke, if I remember correctly, because I actually kind of only heard about this from Andrew Yang's sort of response to it. And by the way, Andrew Yang was basically saying the guy should keep his job. He and his wife Evelyn sat down and watched the whole thing and watched some of the guy's comedy. We're trying to see where the guy was coming from and felt like that guy shouldn't lose his job over it. But I think I remember the jokes were about Asians kind of being wimpy, right? Or like that was kind of the joke is like Asians are kind of, I don't know, wimpy or frail or something. And if you're asking if that's the power Asians want, yeah, we probably really don't like that stereotype. Many of us really don't.
Right.
It took a long time to get Bruce Lee on TV, and he was like the only badass we had in like American TV for quite a while.
Right. But I'm not talking about the content. I'm not talking about the content.
Yeah, but you are talking about a moment where it's responding to that guy being able to, before, for like literally since the beginning of American media and culture, people could make those jokes about Asians and not even have a funny punchline, and people would accept it. I think a lot of Asians would like to be able to say in those situations, yeah, fuck you, you can't just boss us around and say and treat us like we're, these frail Orientals that you can shit on.
Right, but there's a difference between treating them like they're frail Orientals who you can shit on and making a joke.
But the joke is like comes from that, though. It comes from that's the thing. Okay, so I am a big fan of comedy. I lived in New York for a while. I went to the Cellar often, and the Village Underground, and the Fat Black Pussycat. And I'd love to get on and talk about that maybe a little more and talk about New York, because we've talked about this kind of thing for a little while. But that has actually put me at odds with my staunch social justice people, because comedy brings joy into the world, man. And I agree with you that it is a really tenuous thing, and it's actually fundamentally about discomfort. People don't think about it in that way very much, but
it's fundamentally about surprise. The comedian knows where they're going, right? And all of a sudden they take a swift left turn and you're like, oh my God, they brought it. Wow. There's a joy. It's gut, and your gut knows. Now, but whether or not the end game turned out to be funny or not is very subjective. Okay. And even if no one, what's the animus behind it? Do you think do you really think that Shane Gillis, or let's just take me as an example, my animus behind it is to point out something, is to be funny. My animus behind it is to you've heard my show many times. Yes, I'll make Asian jokes. Yes, I'll make black jokes. But I make jokes about white motherfuckers. Everybody gets it. Everybody
what Trey
gets it.
And Matt would say as the equal opportunity offender.
Yes. And so since that's the case, there has to be a quantifiable definition of that, because the reality is, and I've said it many times on my show, when a bully gets their way, they do not come back tomorrow and say, hey, thanks for the 25 cents. They say, give me 50 cents. And the next day they say, give me 75 cents. And bullies come in all shapes and colors and sizes, and to bend to the sway, that's where the problem is. That's part of the reason, honestly, I kind of believe that Dave Chappelle gets away with more, because he didn't go, I'm so sorry, trans people. He went, what? Okay, whatever. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do, here's another special. He went and kept moving. By the way, that's why I think Asians have been so fucking successful in America, because they haven't been, while whites and blacks are like this, they've been like head down, working hard, they didn't, oh, please like me. They said, watch this. Oh, you're going to shit on us? Watch this, motherfucker. Keep talking shit. Keep talking shit. Oh, all of a sudden we're at the head of your company. All of a sudden we're making way more money than you. Pfft, keep talking shit. They went, keep talking shit, instead of, hey, stop saying that. And now all of a sudden, now they're starting to ramp up and say, hey, don't say that. But the reality is, like you just said, your mom, who's an Asian person, has some real racist ideas, right? Yeah. So this is complicated. The Mexicans who were coming up, remember when we were all scared or welcoming the caravan, whatever, whatever. Those guys, you think motherfuckers? Well,
mostly they weren't Mexicans. Maybe I'm being a stickler, but I'm not, because they're mostly from countries below Mexico.
Right, but I know Mexican motherfuckers who, as they would put it, ain't down with that gay shit.
I know you do. I know you've said that.
Crosses,
And so that's
crosses and cowboy hats and guns, motherfucker. They are not, quote unquote, down with that gay shit. So to think I'm gonna put myself as a white lady. I'm gonna enclose myself around this poor person of color. And in order to help this person, I'm going to shut down the speech of another person is reprehensible. And it is, in my personal opinion, a little fucking white supremacist. It's a little white supremacist.
I didn't even follow that train that you were talking because I don't know. It's just for anyone who's looking for me to come get you about what you just said, I just kind of gave up on you. I was like, what is this?
You can email me, by the way, boys and girls. You can email me at conservatishpodcast@gmail.com.
Wonderful.
Can I bring up?
I wanted. But okay, one other thing, a tiny thing I want to respond about. Then let's move away from comedy and maybe go somewhere else. But Jerry Seinfeld, who I don't even really like as a person that much, but who has like a pretty good show where he talks to comedians and has a ton of respect for good reasons and ran a great show. Right? He basically would say that the ultimate arbiter, and he didn't use this word, but I'm too fucking wordy with my shit, is the audience. And that's one of the challenges with a podcast, or I think Shane Gillis he was doing like some little sketch thing or a little video. It didn't have like a live audience, right? Yeah. Exactly. And that's where the challenge is. That when Dave Chappelle makes those jokes in front of an audience, you can see immediately that it gets a good enough reaction where he'll clap and he'll run to the back of the stage and he'll kind of ham it up for a little bit and it's all good. But so I would agree that. And it does make a difference because you could be in a room full of fucking white supremacists, I guess, and people I'm sure do like they definitely do punk music and like country music at events like that. Okay. But so I can't just say that an audience like approving of something makes it automatically okay. But it does. That's one of the things that makes it especially challenging. Like another example would be, do you remember when Don Imus was like this conservative commentator?
Are you going to bring up Patrice and what Patrice said?
No, but I'd like to hear because I know you were a big fan of Patrice O'Neill. But Don Imus was trying to make fun of these Tennessee Lady Vols basketball team, powerhouse basketball team, and called because they were a mostly black team, said there's a bunch of nappy-headed hoes. And it just like totally did not resonate and was not funny. And it's of course, well, maybe I wouldn't say of course because you wouldn't see it as racist. I would see it as or I don't know what you think. It was fucking racist and bad, and he was held accountable for that. But it does become more in the eye of the beholder. But isn't it a good thing that everybody has a different like view of what's racist or not? We wouldn't want everybody to all have the same view.
Yeah, but I feel like that last sentence you said actually contradicts your goal by shutting down. I'm not saying it's necessarily your goal, but the more, let's be real, the more libertarian or liberal idea of the solution would be to shut down speech.
Well, the thing I like about podcasts is that I'm trying to model, because I've had conversations with conservatives. Check out my episode with Dylan Hudson or Mandy Chappell people. I'm trying to model that I don't need to shut down your speech, but I can respond to it and add more speech that builds a dialogue.
Right, but you would be shut down for having us on the show, depending on the well-meaning, mostly white motherfuckers who are on your side, I would say.
No one's shut me down, No, it depends on what you say and what how I respond to it, probably.
Okay, but you actively brought me on this show, so you're giving me a platform, even though I said cunt and say the N-word on my show and all kinds of other things, right? So, under the right circumstances,
why'd you have to tell my audience that you've said that on occasion?
Because
you do have some black in you, right? In your
yes, I do. But
genealogy.
That's exactly what I'm saying. But this is what I'm saying. I'm bringing that up specifically to say that letting the beast loose, giving the bully the 25 cents, saying, "I'm so sorry, let me whip myself," it's never satisfied. And I don't care. I do not care if the bully is doing it because of revenge. I do not care if it's even Stevens. Well, you shut us down for a long time, so now you eat the dirt. That's when you're a parent, you don't let your kid say, "Okay, fine, you go hit that kid back." That's not what you do. Okay? Is it unfair? Is it unjust? Sure. And this is the main question that I wanted to talk to you about, because I think it kind of encompasses a lot of ideas. Where along the line? I want it identified, I want it quantified. Where along the line does personal responsibility come in? Where along the line does personal responsibility come in? I'll explain what I mean. Heard a lot of people saying, well, you don't get to say, how you don't get to, people, especially whites, don't get to say when. Essentially, they're saying that black people who are looting, and mostly it's white people who are writing.
Thanks for acknowledging that.
Yeah. I keep fucking saying it. White liberals are the fucking problem. Tell me I'm fucking wrong. Look at fucking Minneapolis, goddamn, a bunch of white liberals going, "Oh, good, throw a brick. I'm mad at you, Dad." Suck a dick, motherfucker. God, grow up. Do some therapy. You know how free therapy is everywhere, dude. It's everywhere. It's on YouTube. You could learn how to meditate. You can learn how to. God, do something to better yourself. How are your relationships? Oh, I want to change the world. While you're wasting your parents.
So what's your point about personal responsibility?
Where does personal responsibility come in? And mostly I'm bringing that up because essentially they're saying, a lot of these people, I don't know, maybe not you, maybe whatever. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are saying essentially the argument of they had a bad childhood. But a lot of people have bad childhoods. So like with the whole idea of the defund the police, right? A lot of the well-meaning, mostly
Wait,
white
who had a bad
motherfuckers.
childhood? The people who are throwing bricks through storefronts?
No, this is what I'm saying. So they've said part of the way that the people who were saying defund the police, why it would help, is because we'll allocate those funds to community outreach and opportunity and social services, right? Now, I personally believe...
And housing.
Sure, and housing. I personally believe we absolutely need those things. And it would make a huge... I mean, we already have we already have a lot of that, but could more of that benefit the community? Abso-fucking-lutely. But millions of people a day who are poor don't murder people. Right?
Sure.
To say millions of people a day who are poor don't grab and smash and loot and riot, right? So essentially they're saying, well, if we just go back in time and hug people more, we'll have less crime. But I personally know murderers. I've done volunteer work in the prison since 2011. I know real ass motherfuckers, and they've changed their life around and they're doing great, and some of them are getting out, and I'm so happy. So happy. But
Good.
All along the line, if you ask them, were you guilty? Okay, number one, they would say yes. This isn't Shawshank Redemption. Okay. And number two, they didn't steal or kill or maim because they didn't have a job. Okay. They didn't steal or kill or maim because they didn't have opportunity or because they didn't have whatever. Because there's a lot of motherfuckers who have horrendous backgrounds, who are now at the top levels of echelons of... I'm not saying it's an everyday occurrence, but no, it isn't. What I'm saying is where along the line, why is one guy who grew up in the hood over here and one guy who grew up in the hood over here? Where along the line, from your personal idea, where does personal responsibility come into it?
I can probably respond to that in a number of ways, because the things that are considered criminal enough to get somebody a long jail sentence and have you work with them since 2011 is a very broad number of things. And if you want to talk just about murder...
Let's talk just about murder, yeah.
Well, that's the problem with talking about defunding the police, because so much of what the police end up, getting people for is nonviolent drug charges, distribution of drugs. So that is a very, very closely correlated situation to poverty, because if you don't have enough jobs in this community, and you let's say you face discrimination in terms of getting some of the jobs that are out there, and or they don't pay a living wage, and whatever these things are that are contributing to that situation, you might let's say you brought up in a culture where from 14, 15, 16 you were hustling to make money with drugs.
Culture makes a difference. I'm down with the culture. Continue.
You're going to sell drugs. And they're drug dealers of all races, by the way. I don't want someone to say, oh, I'm blaming culture of any particular group. I'm not. So that's where people who are saying defund the police, and I am one of them, frankly. I believe that we should, because it's not radical to defund the police when we've been defunding education for decades, and that does contribute to some of these issues that the police are doing. I don't think that there are many people saying that somebody who wants to go murder someone should not be intervened in by somebody by a tough motherfucker in a uniform who is armed. I don't think very many people are saying that, but when we talk about defunding the police, we have to break down the institution as it stands. And Camden, New Jersey is kind of a good example, but kind of a bad example of when some people notice that this police department is so stricken with corruption that we can't let it operate as is and do these chip away reforms because it's fucking rotten from the system inside out. And, I've had friends in Minnesota who live in the Twin Cities after I was friends with them at Carleton or whatever, 45 miles south. And they've been fighting for police abolition since before Philando Castile was murdered by a cop. Right? So that's one of the things that is a little bit challenging. And I'll try to tie this back to personal responsibility because I get what you're saying. People are responsible for their actions. But
people are only responsible for their actions if they're shown that they're responsible for their actions. Culture is the difference, like you said.
There's not a lot of people on the left that are saying that people should not face any accountability for a murder.
Maybe, but let me rephrase it a different way. Fathers, that's a dad's job to say, hey, stop that shit. Hey, this is what I did. I get my fucking ass up at 5 o'clock in the morning, even though I'm not making enough that I think I should. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I work my fucking ass off to give you a fucking place to live, to give you a place, right? Fathers, an example. That's where culture, that's the culture that I'm talking about, okay? But if you're surrounded by people who are modeling horseshit and irresponsibility for their actions and their behaviors and their motives and their perceptions and their emotions, then of course you would mirror that. But I'm not saying that people who Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to clarify what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that somewhere along the line we have to mathematically put it. If we're going to come up with those solutions, we have to mathematically define the problem. We have to. Is it going to fit to every case? No, but we have to. Just like I said with the joke thing. Mm-hmm. If Lorne Michaels is going to let Tina Fey, right, but not Shane Gillis, why? I want it on paper. So that if I'm going to go into a company or if I'm going to go into a career, that I know on paper, it says right here, you're allowed to make Asian jokes but not gay jokes. I want it on fucking paper so that it's not, so that they're, okay, so then why doesn't everyone grow up? Why isn't that the thing? You've worked.
There are a few different things.
You personally. Yeah. Right, but you personally have worked at a minimum wage job, have you not?
Yes.
Okay, so have I. Okay? Mm-hmm. I didn't steal. I didn't kill anybody. Right?
Okay.
Why?
Sure.
Is it because
Stealing
I'm better
and killing people
than
are
them?
Just so different, man. So different. Stealing and killing people are so different.
Okay. Let's stick to steal. Stick to steal.
But I know you said that you have stolen in the past when you were younger.
Yeah, before I got sober. Yeah, before I got a job. I didn't get a job till I was 17,
I actually, one of the things 18. I did want to ask you too, I don't want you to lose your thread, but
sure.
Cheese in New York, dude, like a little thing of cheese. Have you I don't want you to out yourself, but are you going to pay $13 for a little slab of cheddar, or are you going to throw it in your pocket? I'm not.
No, if I want to feel good about myself, yeah, I'm going to have to buy it.
Okay. No, it does make a difference. That's true.
It makes a difference internally, yeah. Mm-hmm. If I'm going into a Gristades or somewhere that has a lot of money, I know internally you can mentally say, well, this is not a mom and pop shop, so I could get, and they have tax breaks. I mean, that's why they have loss prevention. They're supposed to, but internally, okay, there are certain immutable fucking laws that suck. And one of them is you do bad shit, you feel bad. I don't like it. I would love to take from people and feel okay. But I think it affects all of us. But the reason why I've had that experience is because I did steal, okay? And the reason why I changed is because of the culture around me. The people around me who modeled for me, hey, this is going to make you have bad fucking consequences more internally than ever, more internal than external. So we don't do that shit. Okay.
Right.
So this is my experience. I worked at as a dumb fucking dishwasher. Okay. Couldn't get to, that was my first job. I was 17 years old. I couldn't get to work on time to save my fucking life. And they let me go after 6 months. I worked at Starbucks. Couldn't get to work on time, to save my life. Lost that job. Okay.
Right.
But every single time, then I learned, oh, my friend is hiring at Sears or whatever. Am I willing to work for minimum wage as long as I sell microwaves? Was I good? No. But did I eventually start making more money? Yes. Okay. So my experience is I sucked it up. Okay. And no one, I mean, minimum wage jobs are not designed to be somewhere more than fucking 6 months. You're supposed to be so good at this shitty fucking task that you get a raise or get a promotion and eventually start moving up. Now, if that's not if that's not happening at McDonald's, guess what, motherfucker? It's happening at Burger King. If it's not happening at Burger King, it's happening at fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like, there is opportunity. But if the culture around you, where is personal responsibility if the culture around you is saying, hey, you deserve better. You deserve better than to, motherfucker, you think, I mean, while you're waiting for IBM to call, yes, you do have to work for McDonald's. And that's what I was told. I remember being like, when I think it was between losing the job at Starbucks and starting work at Sears, which I eventually, by the way, lost to being late. Yeah. I think it was between that I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to work for Sears. And my friend was like, you don't have a job right now. You don't have any money coming in. It doesn't matter where you want to work. Get a fucking job and then deal with it later. Work for work for McDonald's while you're waiting for IBM to call. So, can't that same spiritual principle apply even though someone's black?
Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to respond because yes, that's first of all, yes, it can, even if no matter what the racial identity of a person is. But okay, a couple things. So you talk about people don't want to be shouted over and like silenced, right? And this is like a little brief anecdote, but I want you to let me talk for like a solid like 3 or 4 minutes, and I'll let you know when I guess it's your turn again.
I hope I wasn't. I don't think I was stepping over your words.
Not really, because it's hard for me to jump in. But that's a difference in perception. When I was a CSA senator at Carleton in the Student Senate, there was a lot of controversy on campus around too many white men speak at the Senate meetings, and it's actually a difficult thing to sort of unpack because. The people who were women and women of color and not of those privileged identities were not given less speaking time. They were able to be on the speakers list and contribute, but they didn't do it as much, and that's probably because of how they felt in that circumstance and in that environment, and because we were using Robert's rules or whatever. So I just think it's interesting and something to be aware of. I'm not putting the blame on you. I'm just saying that I have a hard time jumping in, and so it's interesting to think about. But that was an aside.
You know what
I actually think that minimum. I think that minimum wage is definitely. I think a few things about it because it hasn't scaled to inflation at all, and so it's gone way down in terms of like. So it's like you and I are slightly different generations. We're both millennials, but you're on the older side and I'm on the younger side of millennial, and it's different now than it was when people were even in the early 2000s. The amount we have to spend on rent has certainly gone up, and all sorts of utilities have gone up. So but it's a thing where if we instituted a too high of a federal minimum wage, like places like West Virginia and Wyoming would be totally fucked. So that's something where I'll kind of agree with you that there's a place for having minimum wage jobs that are a pretty low wage so that people can hopefully work up and through and out of it. And I see you're taking notes, which is good. I took a few notes too. This is awesome. And I will ultimately get to your point about can this black people also like look at this as with the personal responsibility? But I can't say that without naming the fact that I think we got dangerously close to the explicit argument, and neither of us are okay. You said you're 5% black, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
So we're basically
4 or 5.
Right. And so it's cringy to me for us to bring up a conversation about like, oh, the fathers in the black community are absent, because that is one of the, Ben Shapiro has actually basically brought that up on a few occasions, I think. And one occasion when he's talking about why, society is in disarray and people aren't like contributing and like they're expecting so much from the government, is because historically it was the church that that's kind of set in those rules of order and socialized people together and made people feel like they're all working towards a common purpose. And so that's something we need to think about if we're trying to reimagine a society where everybody feels like they're a part of this America thing, right? But I hate people bringing up like, this is a problem that the black community just needs to take care of, because that creates this bullshit narrative that they're not doing that work. And I think that that people in that community are some of the most fervent advocates for their own community and for trying to have that kind of social cohesion and have those things that families, want to be able to have. So yeah, that's where I want to say, and to ignore that, because people are always bringing up, oh, black on black crime, why are you so focused on this white officer who shoots this person? And it's like, people are working really hard to try to create programs to reduce gang violence and to things like that. But also that's a fraught point, because people in communities, there's a ton of white on white crime, and there's a ton of Latinx on Latinx crime, and people kill based on their proximity to each other. So ultimately, and I'll finally let you go, and I appreciate that you were receptive to my point, is that when you frame this argument as it's all about personal responsibility, it's not that simple, because some communities live in concentrated poverty that's been enforced by city, state, and federal government for decades. And so if you have, let's say, 500 beans and a jar that fits 300 beans, it's not a personal responsibility issue. Of course, we want those 300 jobs, this is the kind of analogy I'm doing, to be able to grow and have more job opportunities for more people. But some communities have just had a bigger advantage for generations. And so combating that is really difficult. So of course, the 200 that cannot fit into those 300 spots are going to have to do something. And maybe you would say they try to get an online job or something like that. But ultimately, it's just that you run up against an upper limit. I'm not making excuses for people to go do immoral behavior, but that's the limitation of the personal responsibility argument. And I think I said what I wanted to say.
Okay. I feel like you yelled at me, and no, I'm just kidding. Okay. So a couple of things. I'll just start with the last thing you said, because you said, I'm not saying it's all about personal responsibility. Okay. I personally have gotten an incredible amount of help. Okay. Mostly spiritually, by people who, may not have wanted to help this, weird little half Puerto Rican bald kid. Okay. But did, and helped me, when I would ask them, well, I'm frustrated about this, or I don't know how to get a job. And they would like, okay, here's how to do a pro and cons list. Here's how to meditate about this and that. So mostly mentally, emotionally, okay, which affects everything else, right?
Yeah.
So I've been helped by culture, but that culture has surrounded me and helped me to stand on my own 2 feet, right? And part of it was to stand on my own 2 feet before I was emotionally ready, or before I defined it, defined myself as emotionally ready. The other thing is, even though you're not saying that it's an excuse or a blanket blank check, right? There are people who are. and those people are not, you know what I mean? Like those people are not the people on the right. You know, it's mostly people on the left, right? Who would say things like, I mean, jobs or what would they say? You know, they're messing with, looting is only affecting, businesses. It's just money. What's more replaceable is, or you can't replace lives, you can replace money. Number one, what I say to that is that it's not a binary choice. You can be super sad and fucking angry that George died, and also not want the 17, as far as what I can tell so far, the 17 people who have died because as the result of looting and riots over the last 2-3 weeks. You can want them both to not have died. You can want people to keep jobs as well as George to not be died, for cops to do better, right?
Are you okay with me jumping in a little bit, or
please?
Should I roll out the? Yeah, man. So a lot of those businesses are insured, and so that shit's not going to hurt the business owners as much. I wish that a riot could be more discerning of those things. I wish that they wouldn't go after black and POC BIPOC owned businesses, but that's one of the things that's difficult. And then also, we sit on this. I was born in '93, and so there's always been a certain amount of dignity that gay people and at least gay people, not LGBTQ plus people across the board, have experienced in my direct surroundings in Eugene. That shit came from riots, man. That shit came from Marsha P. Johnson throwing the first brick through the Stonewall at Stonewall in New York City. And so it's disheartening when I see so many people being like, man, okay, I hear you talking specifically about the 70 people who died, so I don't want to lump you in too much, but the idea that a riot doesn't accomplish anything, especially if you're going to hold up Martin Luther King Jr., as so many people do, to say that he was opposed to that kind of shit, it's just not true. It's ahistorical. We've sanitized his legacy through education and through media, and so I just really think that uprisings do accomplish a lot more than some people like to say they do.
Okay, but what about the 17 people who have died?
I don't know much about those people, and that's probably a problem with the media because I haven't been informed about those people.
Okay. One of them, or a number of them, were people of color. One of them was a retired, I think it was Chicago? I don't know. One of them was a 70-year-old black police captain. His friend's store was being looted, and he tried to defend it and was shot after a scuffle by another black man. Okay. So again, we're talking about medicine and diagnosis. If the diagnosis was actually accurate, I might agree with the medicine being right. But the medicine is, especially if 17 people have died because of it. Yeah. So anyway, and I can talk more to that.
But the uprisings have led to the Minneapolis City Council pretty much unanimously saying they're going to disband the police, which is going to have tons of positive impact on hundreds of people probably not getting locked up and having their lives thrown away, more than those 17 people, if that really happens. So where I think a riot often comes in is, okay, there are some issues.
But are you saying that you have to break a few eggs?
I don't think anyone needs to die, but you can have riots where people don't die. So in a better world, that would have been better. I don't know. I don't know about those deaths besides the one you mentioned. I guess my point is that, so here's where a riot comes in. There are some issues where the only two wings of our government, and they really are two peas in much of the same pod on a lot of economic and structural issues. The Democratic and the Republican parties are both very pro-police. That's just, when you get people in power especially, and the police unions have a ton of power, they're both very pro-prison and industrial complex. They're both very pro-military. And so people, like, it's so frustrating when the answer is like, don't do all this destructive stuff and don't be so combative, just go out and vote. It's like, no, that's how you're deflecting people's genuine passion into something that's not going to have the impact that they want to see.
Right. I agree with you. And I'm not positing the idea that riots don't do anything. What I'm saying is 17 people have died. as far as 5-6 days ago when the article came out. And it wasn't.
Is that nationwide?
And it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Yeah, nationwide. And it wasn't truth.biz. It wasn't I love patriots. Fucking edu. People have died because of it. Right now, I have more to say on that, but I do want to get to my other points. I think. Let me see if I want to get to my. Oh, yeah, I did say it earlier. I'm not saying it's all about personal responsibility because we all have help, but I am saying if your friends around you and the male or female, whatever, if the influences around you are saying, man, they're only paying you $7.50 an hour, fuck that shit, you deserve better, blah, 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 then you're going to believe that. Especially when, again, the culture of the homies around you are making a shit ton of money selling bullshit, right? Now, inflation. Yes, I do agree that inflation has happened, but the majority, the majority of these guys who are, let's not say all, but no one is expecting someone who works at McDonald's to have their own studio apartment.
But they should be able to, if they get sick, they should not have to fucking go into enormous debt. They should be able to shack up with one or two other people.
Absolutely,
and,
but why
be able to afford
do those
decent
men
food?
Right, but why do those men and women or whoever? Why do those people not live in a studio apartment or even rent a room on the majority? Is because they are probably already still living with their parents. If they're 17, we're talking about people who are between the ages of 14, okay? 13 is when the crime really starts to ramp up. We're talking about people between the ages of 13 and mid-20s, okay? Those are if we could really talk about the personal responsibility and what's making the fulcrum between I'm going to do some fucking crime shit and I'm not, that's the age bracket. Those age brackets, none of them are living on their own and just like, oh, I'm so late on rent. You already live with a cousin, a mom, a dad. Come on, let's be fucking real.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think a lot of the pain in society, so there's a lot of corruptions that are not just governmental corruption. And for example, education is very corrupt and higher education is very corrupt. And one of the things that I see when I think about your situation there is that, so people get funneled into the idea that they have to go to a 4-year college and get a bachelor's. And in this country, so there's so much that pushes people to do that. And I think that a lot of those people end up having a great education and, can not have to turn to a dumbass podcast to learn about shit.
If anyone's listening to you or I trying to learn about it, they got a problem.
Right. But then, gosh, when you get people who come out of that 4-year degree, even if it's in something like mathematics or maybe not engineering, because that is pretty often lucrative, but not the most liberal artsy fucking English or history things. People really do, like, our education system is not very tethered to gainful employment. You'd probably agree with that.
Yes, but I don't know why you're going down this road when you're bringing up education when I was talking about somebody, as an example, living with their parents,
right,
working at McDonald's.
Well, you said 17 to 25, and I'm thinking about how shitty it is for people who then come out of like a situation where they did everything that they were kind of coached to do by their teachers in their community. Turns out you still have to, it's not McDonald's, but it's Chipotle
so you're talking about after college. I'm talking about before college. A lot of those guys lack the opportunity to even go, who lack the opportunity or the drive or even the vision to go to a school. I'm talking about dudes who are not even, or females who are not even trying to go to school.
But the wage should be something higher, something where if you have student loan debt or anything else. Yeah, $7.25 doesn't get you anywhere, man, and unless you live in Utah or West Virginia.
In 6 months, you get $8.
I mean,
and not just do you get $8. Not just do you get. Okay, let's talk about it even more.
And then $8 is not enough because there's
not enough.
No, it's
not. Absolutely, it's not. But again, where's the line? Where's the finish line? Where's the finish line? I'm not saying that someone can support themselves at fucking 6 months into a job. Okay. But there's more spiritual benefit, not just financial benefit and whatever, but you're telling them, you're showing a motherfucker, you're showing up on time, you're showing up to the job, you're reliable. There is something to that. You know what I mean? Like there are people who I know who still work at that fucking Starbucks, okay? And they're managers making good fucking buku bucks, okay? Even though my stupid ass was too irresponsible to grow the fuck up and get to work on time.
There's just too many employers that have no. I mean, yeah, some people will maybe have a good ladder system where you can climb up and actually make some better wages with real commitment. But there's a lot of places where people get funneled into dead end jobs. It's like the 500 beans in the 300 jar thing, like I said.
Okay, maybe.
And so people are going to be so disillusioned by how they cannot accumulate wealth, like they cannot save up money,
right.
or at least let's say to do so they have to work 2 jobs and it's backbreaking and they can't have a kid because there's too much, So then if you have a healthcare issue or you want to invest money into education and it doesn't end up going very well, you just get a lot of people who are really fucking hurting in a country that is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. So, I mean, that's where a lot of my generation feels is fucking disillusioned and doesn't feel like we're part of anything. I mean, a minimum wage is one thing, but we need all of those issues that I talked about to be ameliorated. I want to talk about music at some point too.
And I know that when I look at my experience,
I'll let you have the last word on this topic. Go in, and then we'll talk.
I didn't know.
Something else.
I didn't. You want to move on to another one?
Yeah, eventually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're an hour and 12 minutes in.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
Maybe we should.
And I didn't even ask you for your controversial opinion because it was all controversial right off the gate. So I didn't even ask you for that.
Boys and girls. I love you. And if you're white and you disagree with me, remember you're racist. Now, as far as the disillusionment, I will make this point. I look at it goes to that spiritual thing we were talking about, or mental or emotional or whatever the fuck. The non-tangible thing we were talking about. That your perception, I know you can look at your personal experience, even being, 23, you're not 23 anymore, whatever.
26.
You're in your 20s, 26. You can look at your personal experience and remember a time where you absolutely believed something to be true that turned out later to not be.
Yeah.
Okay. Why, especially if the stakes are as high as 17 people dying or looting in the streets or whatever, why does perception get automatically blindly followed because the person has black skin? You're talking about disillusionment. This is what I'm talking about. You're talking about disillusionment.
That is a false boogeyman.
It's not a false boogeyman. This is what I'm saying. How much of the disillusionment, comes from reality, and how much of it comes from their perception of what's going on around them, of their culture surrounding them, of their culture on TV, of the culture on social media, like you're talking about, of the culture of, like they were talking about this shit in the 80s when what's his face, lifestyles of the rich and famous. They're saying lifestyles of the rich and famous, and they're broke as fuck, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying one didn't cause the other. I'm not saying even that what you're saying of what caused it is wrong, but at a certain point, it doesn't matter what caused it. We should address what caused it. But at a certain point, we still need motherfuckers, strong-ass motherfuckers who have experienced tackling a motherfucker who is covered in shit in the Tenderloin at 3 a.m. in the morning. We need somebody who's coughing and spitting up hepatitis and possibly corona and all kinds of shit. We need somebody to do that. Right? We need a strong-ass motherfucker. And it doesn't matter how much hugging we can do more in the community. Human insanity, life finds a way, like Michael Crichton wrote in fucking Jurassic Park, okay? Life finds a way. Dirty, dark, filthy fucking humanity, okay?
You're quoting Jeff Goldblum, and you should have done it way earlier, man, because my best friend Brian tuned out by now. He loves Jeff Goldblum.
Right, but Crichton did. Crichton wrote that shit, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is dirty, dark, filthy, fucking evil, heart-eating humanity finds a way. It always does. And just because someone is white or black shouldn't make a difference on whether or not we hold them accountable for being selfish, like the Mexican woman a few weeks ago, or a week ago. You heard me talk about this. Yeah, she beheaded her child, her 5-year-old daughter. Okay, that wasn't racially motivated. The guy at who was it? Family Dollar store, the security guard who was shot in the back of the head because he told by another black guy, 2 black guys, one victim, one murderer,
and because
because
the
in
mask.
Flint, Michigan. Right, because of a fucking mask. Okay, now that wasn't racially motivated. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like this is
I understand what
complicated
you're saying,
shit.
but it's so complicated. But you're trying to. You said something about how people who are people of color are not being held accountable. That is not borne out by the prison and the charging and the legal system and the courts. I mean, those people are absolutely getting held accountable much more for the same crimes.
Okay,
Oh,
we can talk about that. But there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it. That's what I'm saying. Is that
racial bias?
The point that I'm making.
Racial bias. I mean, okay.
You're saying
so there are cops. There are cops who profile.
53% of the murder is by a black person, and they're 13% of the population. Even if half of those guys were just racist cops, it still would be way higher than it should be. Come on.
What I was talking about
let's stop the bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
No? Personal fucking responsibility. Stop killing people.
Sure.
If we made that a part of everyday person's life, if we made that a part of kids' lives, you and I didn't grow up in a world where there were. Well, you're younger than me by a little bit, but you and I didn't grow up in a world where there were. My fucking recorder stopped because of the batteries.
Oh no!
You might have to cut in through here the audio, but all I'm saying is, it needs to be a part of the conversation. And you're right. I'm not saying that blacks are getting away with more murder or whatever. But what I am saying is that culturally, especially because of white motherfuckers' guilt, we're acting like the problem is a lot bigger than it is. And because of that frantic fear that black people have that they shouldn't have, and because of that, I'm gonna protect these black people who I don't fucking know, because these white motherfuckers don't know no motherfucking black people except for the 3 that they follow on Instagram. Because of both of those are coming to create this perfect storm of 17 people dying as a result of the riots, even though only 9 black people were murdered in 2019 who were unarmed by cops. 9. And 5 of those attacked the fucking cop first. I'm talking about medicine and diagnosis. I would agree with the medicine if the diagnosis was correct.
So people will often like to point out that there are more white people who are killed by police than black people, but
I'm not talking about more.
I know, but I'm saying it still disproportionately affects that community, and it happens time and time again.
It's about 10%. Yes, you're right. I'm talking unarmed in 2019. Let's just specifically talk about unarmed in 2019. 10, 15% more. Should that be? Would you be happy if that was down to 13%?
I'm not black, but my perception is that truly, if I grew up in a society where I was an African American and I had to fear the police and be stopped on so many occasions where I was doing absolutely nothing wrong, and that I genuinely had to watch all of these stories of people being killed on these different occasions. Man, I am not saying that I just don't even feel like I can tell a person not to attack the police. I really don't feel like I can say that, because it's, I have a friend who texted me the other day and said, I really agree. Tamir Rice was murdered and it was awful. Freddie Gray was murdered and it was awful. George Floyd was murdered and it was awful. But Michael Brown, one of my few close friends who is in Eugene and is conservative. He was like, Michael Brown's shooting was justified, and we kind of had a disagreement about that. But man, this is a crazy tenet of police. Modern U.S. policing descended from slave catchers, man. So it's I don't know what I can say to a person when they are pulled over and they're treated in a dehumanizing way. Police have dehumanized me, man, and it's no fun, and I would understand people who are getting upset about it. But
I would understand getting upset as well, but somewhere along the line, even if you were molested, you're not allowed to molest people. This is what I'm saying. Personal responsibility.
it's not the same to attack a cop.
I'm not saying it is. I never said it was. I never said it was. I'm sorry. Let me clarify what I'm saying. I am not conflating molesting with murder. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's the same. I'm saying the personal responsibility angle. Most molesters have been molested before, right? But at a certain point, there's a little fulcrum between explanation and excuse, and we decide whether that person is, well, yeah, that's an explanation for them doing what they did, and that's an excuse, right?
Okay.
Especially if these 17 people who died did not deserve to. They weren't Derek Chauvin.
I will ultimately agree with you that at some point that loop needs to be intervened with, but I'm a little doubtful that frankly the tone and the attitude that you're conveying and the things that you're saying are really doing an effective job of that. As basically a non-black person just trying to stir up the idea that. That's what I'm saying, man. I don't like. Are you really helping?
Wait a second. Now you're saying my tone? Oh,
yeah.
I was angry about white people. I was angry about white motherfuckers. I get passionate all the time.
I know
you know
do.
that.
I know, but. So, okay, what we would probably agree with is that there are a lot of unfortunate circumstances that prevent the left and the right from talking to each other as much as I would like them to, and you would probably like them to. But we got to find those solutions. And for me, it's like, if one side, yes, they're bringing up this personal responsibility argument, but they don't seem to be proposing a lot of tangible solutions like that the government could do or that people could do.
Sorry.
And people on the left are continually at least trying to fight for like bare minimum baseline like anti-poverty initiatives and housing initiatives and fucking public health being affordable, Medicare for all, like fucking another thing that affects African American communities way disproportionately is climate change and having to live in places that are much more polluted or that people are going to develop through your community and fucks up your community. So that's where, to me, it's like a little bit odd to be like, okay, it's just so easy to like, it sounds kind of like you're blaming them, man. And you're blaming that community.
I never said, right. I agree with you. I would agree with you if that's what I was saying. I'm not some motherfucker. I'm very careful with my words as far as my posts and things like that. I'm very careful. On here, you and I can be flippant. But me saying that where does personal responsibility come in does not say that personal responsibility is all. I did say that, 10 minutes ago, and I'll repeat it again. I'm not saying personal responsibility is all of it, nor is it as simple as me saying that the cops don't need to change. I do think cops need to change. I do think body cams make a big fucking difference. I do think that George Floyd died because that cop was being a fucking asshole piece of shit, an abusive person. Okay. But what I am saying is that both things need to move us forward, both the cops and reform, as well as culturally. The more important piece is to have that conversation about personal responsibility. Okay. I'm not saying it's not that simple. I really got to piss. So I think we should
wrap up pretty soon. Okay. But this is the Overton window.
Wait. Let me finish this last point. I swear to God.
I don't edit the show, so if you piss, you can get up and I will keep talking, and then you can come back. I am ardent about it.
You just say "fuck this bald motherfucker" for like 3 minutes. All right, this is what I'm, and this is, I think you and I are both guilty of it, and I think I could be wrong, but I think right there was a great example of it when you were talking about why I wasn't, or what I'm saying. I wasn't saying personal responsibility is everything. Nor was I saying that cops don't need to change, okay? Nor am I saying that community outreach and social won't help. That's not what I'm saying, okay? So I am partially, I'm straddling both things, and both things can be true at once. But I think because I'm having a conversation about this personal responsibility idea, that the idea comes into maybe your head, just like the idea comes into my head when someone says defund the police, they're a fucking idiot snowflake. No, it's not that simple. And I'll say a perfect example of this. Earlier, someone posted something that said, if all lives matter, it's a little dumb Facebook non-meme meme. It said, if all lives matter, then why aren't you wearing a mask? Now, it's a funny, I get it. It's a kind of colloquial whatever. But let's look at
because the
how
all
many
lives
things
matter
are
people
wrong.
never support lives in so many other situations. It's just
Exactly. This is not simple. That little phrase is essentially set up either because they're evil or because they're dumb. They wrote that thinking that all people who say all lives matter don't agree with wearing a mask. What? Do you know how many people want you to wear a mask but don't think all lives matter, and all lives matter that don't think you should wear a mask or do think you should wear a mask? This is complicated motherfucking shit. There's another meme someone posted.
You're splitting
that said,
hairs, though. It's a very real demographic of people.
It's not.
It's a real demographic of people that are all lives matter.
I am a perfect example. I am a perfect example of shit is in the middle. Shit is complicated. Humans, when you sit them down, I have had every...
It's a meme. You're shouting at me over a meme, dude. The meme is still targeting...
This is why I'm not shouting at you. I'm not shouting at you.
Then be happy that you're not part of the people that meme is targeting, but there are still hundreds of thousands of Americans.
That meme is making people mad for no reason.
It's talking about a very real issue. The reopen people who get in the faces of
people who
cops
are
and
on
went
the
to
left.
Michigan and threatened people with guns. And
listen to what I'm saying. It's making people who are on the left think that this is the diagnosis of the problem, when it's not. It's oversimplifying so that they can get likes.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element of that too.
That's separating us, not bringing us together. That's part of the problem, not the solution. That's why I'm getting animus. And it's not at you. It's not at you. It's not at you. I love you.
I mean, there are problems that need to be called out. Yeah, I love you too.
But this shit of like, why don't you all let... Like, it is not that easy.
Well, the all lives matter argument sucks. The all lives matter argument has always sucked.
I'm not saying that it doesn't.
And it's worth calling out. It's worth making fun of. Because it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
It's just meant to prop up the opposition of BLM.
I'm not saying that it doesn't. I'm saying I agree with you. I'm saying putting that and equating, then why don't you wear a mask, is telling the people who are liberal who follow that person, or that it's a company really. It's called the New Majority of Florida. And I have more to look into what they're fucking talking about. But a company makes that so that they will get clicks, so that liberals who follow them share, see, idiots. That's not fucking helping. You're conflating all lives matter people, which is not, I mean, you're essentially, do you understand what I'm saying? It's separating us.
I've seen some of these sources like Occupy Democrats and the other 98%, and they make like super gimmicky fucking weak-ass memes that are meant to make money. Yeah.
If it makes you feel better, I'm just as mad at them.
If you want to take a pee, I'll erase all of your anti-woke shit with a Beyonce song.
Please. Then let's go like,
come back.
Let's go like 10 more minutes about dick jokes or something, because then I gotta fucking eat.
Okay. I'll tell my audience my response to your body cam thing and your reform thing, because I'm way more in the camp that body cams are just a tiny little piece, and reform is also
important. I'm not saying
important.
It's not a tiny piece, but it does help.
Yeah, it also routes more money towards police budgets, and it doesn't actually put a camera on the cops that are able to do things, and it holds people who are it ends up being used as evidence against people who are perpetrators.
True, but the problem is not as horrendous as we're making it out to be.
Go take your pee.
I actually know guilty black people, Thomas. I know them. I personally know them, and they did murder. I know a guy who was and he slit multiple throats when he was. You're saying opportunity will fix that? You're saying right, but you're saying that. Well, I can understand.
Why are you bringing up that he's black if there's no opportunity for the tiny amount of what I know about this person? Yes, I think there a certain level of opportunity. If we had equal opportunity in this country that we always like to talk about, that may very well not have happened. But you know the guy and I don't. So I just why are you bringing up that he's black?
I'm saying to prove that humanity is that this is a complicated issue, and to put it in simple terms like right bad, right idiot, right is they all believe all lives matter. They all are mad at Colin Kaepernick. No, the fuck they're not. I actually follow these cunts. Everybody on everybody's side. I follow a lot of motherfuckers, and they're not saying all lives matter. Almost none of them, number one, are saying George Floyd died for good fucking reason. They all say that Derek Chauvin was being a fucking piece of shit. Okay. Number two, none of them are saying that change doesn't need to happen. None of them are saying that all lives matter. From what I follow, I don't follow some dumb little fucking Karen who's 50 years old living in Kentucky. She's the one saying all lives matter. Fuck that douchebag. We're on each other's fucking side. God damn it. Go and play your song.
Thank you. I don't know, man. It's like the extent to which I'm on the side of somebody who is continually like, it seems like just throwing the personal responsibility argument out there is a good way to distract from the structural realities that perpetuate oppression and inequality, that continue to do so, and they will always continue to do so. But I brought up to Pete before we started this, and people on the audio know that he's not here. I'm just talking to the mic now. I told him, like, if you say something that's like super offensive, I'm just going to cancel it out with a Beyonce song, because Beyonce is seen by many to be like the queen of all wokesters. So mostly white people. Remember those walls I built? Baby, they're tumbling down. They didn't even put up a fight. They didn't even make a sound. Found a way to let you in, but I never really had a doubt. Standing in the light of your halo, got my angel now. It's like I've been awakened. Every rule I had you breaking. It's the risk that I'm taking. I ain't never gonna shut you out. Oops, everywhere I'm looking. Oh, you're back now, so thank you. Wow, okay.
I'm sorry for getting emotional. I'm sorry for getting emotional. I love you very much. I just want us to connect, that's all.
I'm just accepting that some people who thought that I'm like really hardcore left, and I am on some issues, because that's being a human being, and some things deserve to be really hardcore, I think, are going to be like, wow, you're friends with this person, and they're going to judge me based on that. But I should try to get over that a little bit, because I think that my relationship with you is justified, even though, wow, man, like, yeah, like there's some things that are just like, it's not even just like a strong disagreement. It's like, I feel like I'm almost hitting a wall where it's you're so intensely fixated on like personal responsibility, and it's like that isn't doing a lot to, well, it's not doing a lot to fix the structural issues at play.
It saved my life. It saved my life, and I don't know why it wouldn't save a black person's life. And what bothers me is the white people.
Well,
what bothers me are the white people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I had a black guy on my show, Alex Conley, a few weeks ago, who's saying the exact same things I'm saying now. Again, true. Identity second, idea first.
Yeah, I like that episode you did with Alex. And is he the gentleman who was in Detroit?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah, he's a cool fella. I hope he watches this, but he probably won't, because I don't know. We'll see. Let's talk about your album, man. I really love your album.
It's almost a year old.
I know, but my shit is 6 years old, and that's why I'm working on a new project. But it's actually all about these uprisings.
Are you gonna sing or are you gonna rap?
It's a rap project. It's a rap project, but there'll be some sung hooks. But it'll be interesting. I think it's going to have a flavor to it that's kind of demo-esque because I'm just recording it and trying to put it out in my own, like, do it all myself. And
It's been 6 years?
It's been 6 years
Do
since
you
I
know
put
how
in an
much
album.
you've changed, like how anyone can change over the course of a year? And that was the last. No, you put out something newer than that, maybe in a single format.
Not a project. Not a project.
No music?
No music. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a
little
long
one-off
fucking
videos
time.
and occasional tracks, but not even a track on Spotify, just like, a little Instagram track or something. So, but I love your album, and gosh,
Thank
anybody who no, I don't want. I was gonna diss you. It's rude. I think I think that you've come off really well on episodes of your show. I think that our previous conversations have been really cool, and I do like a lot of this conversation. But I think having it in person would have made a big difference. And the shitty audio quality on your end now is pissing me off. But I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah. I didn't put new batteries in my shit, and I don't know. It's too late now in the episode for me to go. Or I guess I could go grab some batteries if you want. I think I have some in this kitchen. I know I have some in the kitchen.
No, let's just keep rolling, honestly. And it makes it more of an issue when I talk about it. Hey, listeners, don't you hate how shitty he sounds? That just sound good. Just like the album is fucking amazing, man. And to me, it came out of a place of you didn't have any albums put out before, but you had a long history of playing acoustic songs, writing music, and making videos on YouTube and things like that.
Yes, sir.
Covers, and you do a lot of busking. So yeah, what was the process of the album like, and how do you feel now that it's a year old?
So the oldest song on it is actually from 2012, I think. So it's been yes, I recorded it last year, but it's also not a good representation if you want to, say it, of who I am now, right? Everything influences, right? And imagine, like for you, 6 years without being able to utilize the influence that you have now, in a musical format. Or maybe, besides collabs or whatever, to a great effect, to a better, more authentic effect to represent you, right? So when I listen to that album, I love a lot of it, but a lot of it, I'm also, I don't know. So like I said, or like I was going to say, the oldest song is from 2011, 2012.
Which one?
The newest one, Simple Girl.
I love that song.
Thank you. Thank you.
A good lead. Good opening.
Yeah, it's a great. Yeah, it's. I love Kyle Caprista, by the way. Another guy who I know I for sure disagree with a lot of things he thinks or whatever. Amazing drummer, and such a fucking peach of a guy. If you're in the Bay Area and you need a drummer, Kyle Caprista. He's amazing. He beat the hell out of that song, and I love assassins. I love musical assassins. When I got to when he came in, I think we in one day we did Simple Girl, Haters, and maybe Meat Song drums. We put drum tracks down for those 3 songs in one day, probably like 6 hours tops, 5-6 hours. Because he would just come in and I said, here's how I want it to sound, blah blah blah, and he'd just be taking notes. Oh, can you also do the he'd finish a take, and I'd be like, hit the button. Do you mind putting a little roll on the end of that third there? And he's like, yeah, I got it. And he just, okay. And I'm like, you don't need to like zen yourself. You don't need
to.
Fucking assassin. I got to actually sing for the first time. I got to perform on Tuesday.
Nice. Where at?
First time in 3.5 months. At this, it was actually for a wedding band showcase for potential, couples to hire me in this wedding band, and it was so good. It was so much fun to just. I mean, my voice was shot in the first song. My voice was done.
Wow.
Because it's been 3 months or whatever. But it really it was such a beautiful experience. So.
I think people who aren't performing, who aren't vocalists on stage, don't realize how well worked in you have to be to it be able to do your set at peak performance. Because I think that literally, whether you have stage fright or not, which I don't think you experience very much, or you don't seem to, there's still
Every
an
time.
energy, right? Okay, there's still that collective nervousness that really it does something to your chest. It makes it so that like if I was
Tightens
just
up.
singing my whole song, my whole set, 30-minute rap set that has some singing in it too, like I would be able to pull it off here, no problem. And you get in front of even a small audience, it makes a big difference.
Or in the studio. And the studio is pretty bad too, from my
Yeah,
experience. Yeah. Going
I
in, there's
agree.
like, okay, this is going to be the take. This is going to be the take. Don't fuck it up, Pete.
Yep.
I have to.
Yeah.
We were talking about how I'm doing, and I've been practicing a lot more self care, a lot more meditation, a lot more. It's been helping me out so fucking much internally, to
Where in the
just
city are you now?
let go. Hell's
Hell's
Kitchen.
Kitchen still? Yeah,
Mhm.
man. That's for people who don't know, that's Manhattan, and it's
Mhm.
pretty close to the center. I mean, it's a little bit west of kind of like the Times Square area,
You and I
right?
met
Or a
up for
little,
coffee not far from here. I think I'm on 47th and or no, well, yeah, when we recorded that episode when I was in New York
yeah.
last year or the year before.
That's true.
Yeah, man.
Well, my feeling about New York too is like the idea of fresh air is just very different because the air quality is so bad compared to like Eugene, Oregon, for example.
Mm.
But then like if you want to just step out and get some fresh air, it's not going to taste or smell as good, and like you have to have that constant like anxiety of people around, and like whether no matter where you are, it's just it's certainly different than being in fucking residential suburban Eugene walking your dog. So
Would you ever come back?
I think there's a great chance I would come back. I actually didn't finish my master's degree at Columbia. So
Oh,
yeah, I might be able to renew my scholarship and come back and finish that if I want to. But honestly, a lot of it was teaching kind of bummed me out as a profession. Um, but dude,
wait. Are you not gonna keep pursuing teaching?
I don't know, man. I do not know.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah. I'm at a place in my life where I literally don't have a good answer for that question, but I'm
Okay.
doing things that I love and that are important to me, and this podcast is one of them.
Right.
And yeah, dude, but I really like your album. One of the things I love about your album too is that so I've noticed people having very different responses to like what their favorite song is, because I think
Mm-hmm.
any one of those 9 tracks there's not a filler cut on there, man. They all are ambitious. They all have a
Thank you,
great
sir.
melody. They're in great instrumentation, and so like it took me a couple listens to like Mary Ate My Sandwich, but I see some people saying that's like their favorite
Oh
song.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm out. It'd be so random that someone just sends me a message. Who was it? Nico, actually, the guy. Have you heard the Nico episode? The black and Filipino guy who was on
Most recently,
after Alex. After Alex.
yes, I listened to about 60% of it, which is
He's
still almost an hour.
he sent he sent me an email and at the very end, like, he was like, hey, I've been on the show before, just listened to the Alex episode, loved it, I'd love to have a convo if you're down, and also what did he say, screw that bitch Mary or something like that. He was like, I know she ate your sandwich. I'm like, wow, randomly, so I don't know, that's actually the newest song on the album that I wrote maybe a month before we recorded it, 2 or 3 weeks before we recorded it.
Nice. Well, I
Yeah.
think one of the reasons that I'm drawn to your music is that that is one of the clearest examples of humor incorporated. That's why you've got Haters. It's also humor incorporated. And I grew up loving Tenacious D, and Jack Black was actually
You
such
sent
an
this,
idol of
God
mine.
damn it! You sent
Did I
this
say
in
it
the
before?
email.
Yeah,
No, you sent
yeah,
it in the
exactly.
email. I just know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're gonna.
exactly. And I just feel like I feel like I don't know if I can explicitly say that he was a direct influence on the way that you do your music, but at least I feel like if you become very popular, people will continue to compare that, and like Spotify will
Right.
overlap and try to fucking pull your listeners to Tenacious D and stuff.
Right.
Is there any
Yeah.
of that?
From
Is
the
any of that
beginning.
real? Yeah.
From the beginning, people have said it. I liked some of his stuff. I like some of Tenacious D, but he was never like a, this is exactly Carbon. No, it wasn't. It wasn't my intention. I think mostly I get my facial performance styles or my voice, whatever. I think mostly from like energy wise, maybe like Chris Farley, Jim Carrey. I grew up with Dumb and Dumber and The Mask. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
grew up with Ace fucking Ventura. You know what I mean? I grew up with Black Sheep and Tommy Boy. You know what I mean? Like I that was my, and then also the
Can I ask
voice
what your
of
age is? 30
33.
something. 33. Okay. Oh, you're only 7 years older than me. Wow, right on.
Oh.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of what was it? Mike Patton. You ever heard of Mike Patton?
From
Yeah.
Faith No More?
Faith No More. Mr. Bungle was really
Mr.
where
Bungle also?
I've listened to maybe like 2 Faith No More tracks. I just
I love that
I
band.
like We Care a Lot, but it doesn't,
That's before
no,
Mike
Mr.
joined the group,
Bungle.
right? Because the Faith No More had 2 very distinctly different singers. I think maybe Mike Patton is the We Care a Lot singer, or the one who came after. Very different. We Care a Lot
I
was
can
like,
barely hear
he sounds
Mike
like
Patton
this
on-
and this and says fucking delivery.
Right.
And then
No,
the other guy
he
is
was
like,
like Epic.
talking to my mind. Okay, yeah, that's okay.
Epic
That's
is Mike Patton.
Nice.
Yeah. On and on. So I think I get a little bit of that voice.
Have it. Yeah.
Right. I think I get a little bit of his voice, a little bit of Beck, a little bit of Bjork, a little bit of Frank Zappa. I think I'm just, and then really I've created certainly a version of my own, but it's when I do get locked into, I mean, I think that's part of the reason why I blew my voice out on Tuesday was because I've sung Hey Ya so many times by myself with a guitar as the final song after a 2-hour, 3-hour gig, singing the entire time, playing guitar the entire time, 2 to 5 times a month, and using Hey Ya essentially as the closer because I don't have anything else, no other energy. Let me just completely zap myself. Bo, 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 energy, 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 and hold out a belted note because fuck you. And then at the very end, and then I just collapsed and people, do the James Brown cape over me. That when I went in to sing Hey Ya with the band for the first time, I've never sung it with a band before. On Tuesday, I had all that same pent up energy of not performing for 3 months. Okay.
Right.
And even before then, by the way, I haven't really, I think I'd performed 2 other times since leaving California in October. I'm not practiced. Anyway, I brought that same energy and that same like, blah, 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 so that I because I was used to it carrying the entire thing when, with a band, I didn't have to carry the whole thing.
Right on. Have you busked in the subways at all? Because when I was in the city, no, not
yet.
I actually felt like I was making, like, on a good day, I would make $10 in an hour, which I felt like was okay. That's worth doing for something I love. And you can't play in your apartment, at least at full volume, probably. Depends. That's where I was in student housing. So.
Right. Oh, you were. Yeah, here
Yeah.
I could play full volume. But no, I mean, I was living on Long Island for, 6 months.
True.
5-6 months. And then when I finally moved into this place in Hell's Kitchen, the day afterwards, the entire state got on fucking lockdown. So, and I didn't have a job. It was like, what the hell am I going to do? So, no more busking since then, But, I think I might. But I think with I'm in school and getting my bachelor's of science in audio production. And
Nice.
And then also as soon as things start opening up more, doing a bunch of cover band gigs and solo gigs with my guitar, and auditioning for Broadway stuff and doing open mics, comedy open mics. So yeah, and then continuing to do the podcast.
Right on. Do you have any episodes of the podcast? Like Benjo would probably be a decent one, I think, for my audience, but other episodes that you think would be good for people who don't want to feel like, because some of your shit, man, it's like if you have some, I don't know, man, some of it's just offensive. That's not inherently like evil to be offensive, but some of it is offensive as hell, and I don't want to co-sign that.
Well, define, because I can think of a couple that we really don't. I mean, the last one that I just posted this week, we don't mention politics in the entire thing. It is a little sexually suggestive.
BDSM.
Yeah, but not detailed. It's not
Okay.
detailed. I've gone into some fucking detail on my show. Trust
Mhm.
and believe, especially
Yeah.
when the females
I like just
can
the
be
prequel.
anonymous. Yeah, she's a good girl.
Yes.
Yes,
Hmm.
the
Or
or the
early on, you literally had people call a girl called the good girl who was anonymous.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but the last episode is Daddy Ray Tilton,
Hmm.
who's a legend in the LGBT community in San Francisco, especially for the last 30 plus years, almost 40 years.
Hmm.
A survivor of AIDS back in literally 1985. Like he's an OG, part of the first kind of wave of it almost. Um, and so, I remember, I mean, a part of the story he said on the episode is I think it was in 82, 83. He's sick. He doesn't know what it is. He says, and he's in Kansas, and he says, "Oh man, I think I have AIDS," because a bunch of his friends, he's gay, and a bunch of his friends, he saw these dying like, dropping like flies, and he says, "Oh,
Right.
I think I might have AIDS." And his doctor in Kansas in 1983, 84 said, "What's AIDS?" So, I mean, he's been a tireless activist. And yes,
Yeah.
we talk about some leather stuff. We talk about some gay domination. We talk about subs and all that type of stuff, but it's not like graphic necessarily. I don't think
Yeah.
anyway. But yeah, that's a beautiful conversation. That's probably one of my favorite episodes because
Cool.
he's got such a big heart and it's so sweet. And I love the man to death.
It's got a deep voice. I've only listened to the first
Yes, he
5 minutes
does.
or so yet, but usually I will listen to most, like a solid 70% of all of your new episodes because I am a fan.
Thank you, sir.
So
Thank you, sir.
yeah, I'll say that this is how I like you in your different forms. I like you the most. I like you the most as a friend who hangs out with me in person occasionally.
Yes,
Then
sir.
I like you as a musician. Then I like you as a podcaster, and then at the bottom, your social media posts, your online presence. So,
Well, you
but
know what? I will change my entire persona based on. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I don't mind that. I mean,
right,
I do try to be careful. I do. I try, or at least I try to be methodical. I know that sometimes especially on my Instagram, I'm a lot of sex
yes,
stuff,
yep,
especially.
yep, it's
But
true.
but I find it funny and I find it entertaining, and other people do. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, I want to let you make sure you get your food, and
Thank you.
I typically don't do the longest shows I've done have been with the conservative guests, which I think is interesting because we have a lot
You
to
know
say with
what?
one another.
Let's be real though. I'm not necessarily fucking. I mean,
That's
I have
true.
had my dick in like 5 or 6 men's mouths. You can't
Hmm.
necessarily group me in with um,
You're just Milo Yiannopoulos. That's where you are.
no, god
I
damn
know.
it, I'm not him either.
I know. I
That's
know.
the this one
You're
person I love.
conservatish.
Yeah, man. I think we're all kind of in the middle.
I just in
Even you,
Eugene
even you.
interviewing / sitting down with sitting down with people who are running for office. I found that I was like, I would often chat with the people who are running the more left, like populist, like progressive campaign than the Democrat. And the Democrat in Eugene, like the kind of established, like either they're in office already or they're just like have the backing of the local Democrats, is already a pretty left person. So it felt to me like I didn't want people to get the impression. Part of why I wanted to get you on. And I would have got you on a little earlier, but I felt it was important to prioritize some black voices, and I still have other people that I'm going to bring on to talk about things that are happening recently. It's because I didn't want people to think that this is like a liberal show. It's not about me just saying, hey, I'm with all these liberals and we're all talking about how to be smarter and look how smart we are. It's like I do not give a shit what a person's political identity is to a large extent. I give a shit about their human characteristics, and
that is very
yeah.
problematic. I'm sorry. I love you. Continue your point.
Love you
Sorry.
too, man. So, final question I always ask people is, what's one way we could all be a little less stupid?
I think the more we look inside ourselves and get to know ourselves, this can be a couple sentences, right? It doesn't
Of
have to
course.
be like, okay. I think the more we look inward, I think the more we look inward and know ourselves, the more we understand humanity, both the dark side and the light side. And I think ultimately our real problem is fear. and our real solution is love. And anything that goes against love, even if it's for the sake of, trying to whatever that we think is good intentioned, i.e., especially shutting down speech, comes from a place of fear, and it's unwarranted fear. And I think, if you don't think that, I think both camps are right and both camps are necessary. I think both camps are necessary. If we had nothing but capitalism, people wouldn't get help. If we had nothing but help, we wouldn't innovate. You know what I mean? I think we need both teams. I think it's a yin and yang thing. And I think, as long as we're not shutting down, speech, I think that'll be okay. And that's the danger right now. But luckily lucky that people have you and I, because we do shit like, do this fucking podcast and blah, 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 blah. Also, Lastly, guys, eat ass. Don't hold back. Don't be afraid of the ass. Okay. It's right next to the pussy. Like, just, it's clean. She's good. Just dig in there. It's fun. Anyway, that's all.
I am so glad that my podcast, I've always tried to brand it as this is a very free speech friendly show. And then I have the most PC conversation ever. So, you're giving me a little bit of dirty representation, even though it's just a fragment. Just a fragment.
I know I'm on your show. I'm not running the show. I'm not going to.
Cool.
It's great to be on the show, and I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Well, check out Peter Feliciano's album on Spotify and all the other streaming crap. It's literally just called Peter Feliciano. Got a bunch of blood coming out of his mouth because he was just eating ass, and he was doing some biting.
You horrible man. Actually, do you know what that is, actually?
No.
It's me biting my tongue.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. Yeah. So wise. And check out the podcast, maybe, if you want. Conservatish with Peter Feliciano. Do you want to plug anything else?
No, that's all that's going on right now. I'm on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano, and I'm on TikTok like a little fucking millennial, even though, I am technically, but you know what I mean. That's it.
I want to blow up on TikTok. I want to make a real hit song and have it come up through TikTok. I think that's the only way.
You need to floss. You need to do the floss dance.
This is not 2016.
Okay.
That was a while ago.
That's all. That's
it's all about the whoa. Oh, I want to hit a whoa on my show. We almost hit 2 hours, and there's maybe the shit that comes up in your feed doesn't have all these dances, but this is the whoa, man. It's really simple. Oh, that was so bad. It's there's people will just do the arm part, and that doesn't look good. You have to do a little vibration part. So it's that's all it is. It's really bad. I wish I could edit this out.
Street Fighter move. It looks like fucking Tora Tanaka, or what's it? Tanaka? Baraka?
Yeah.
Didn't he have
It looks really cool when done well. So do not watch that again, anybody. Take it easy, Pete. You better send me this wave soon. All right.
Yes, sir. Even though it's half the episode, I apologize, boy.
All good.
Yeah, I'll send it over
soon. Smaller
soon.
file. Much love.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Thomas.
Bye.
Bye-bye.